Now this may be a hot take for some of you. This may be a shit take. It might even be a mistake. Or maybe it's no take at all. I honestly don't see a whole lot of problem exactly in what Mutahar did. I really don't. And I'm going to explain you why in this video. So let's dig into it. Now granted, I may be a little late to the game. It's been around for at least a week or more at this point. But I am still seeing videos coming out that are only a couple days old at most, that are still addressing this particular controversy and issue. Why would a DIY guy even get involved in the commentary space? Well, for one, it seems to do very well, and YouTube is a business after all, let's just be honest here. But number two, because of what he's been claiming, is what really brings me in. And you would say, well, what does a DIY guy like me have to do with Mutahar and his engineering credentialing claims? We do projects on this channel that are more than just your average 5-minute craft type videos. We do things that involve actual engineering like thought processes, including fabrication, testing, and various other activities. So we do actually embody the engineering mindset and a lot of engineering skills. Now, with that being said, I am no professional engineer. I have only been doing this for 20 plus years as an amateur, as a self-taught individual, as somebody who observes, learns, and seeks out the information, then practices those skills until I become proficient in them. That's where my credentialing in that type of field ends. But for doing it for 20 plus years, I feel like at least I've learned a thing or two. And because it is a main premise of our channel, well, we have some stakes at least in the game, which gives us a little bit of reason to dip in there and discuss the topic. So let's get into it while we're cooling off here in the nice, glorious luxury AC of the GMT 800 Resto Mod project. And let's talk about, do we actually care or even bothered at all by Mutahar's claims? Does it even matter? And why would we even care? First, let's start with a little bit of history as to who Mutahar is and what this controversy is even all about. Now that the truck has cooled down a little bit, I could turn down the AC, put the mic more appropriately so it's not right in front of my mouth, and we can actually set up the camera in a little bit of a better positioning here, so we can actually talk a little more freeform and freely about this topic. Now, Mutahar, also known as SomeOrdinaryGamers, is someone I would personally call a YouTube OG. He's been around at least for as long as I've ever known YouTube to be. And I've also been a fan of his show for a very long time. I joined up with his Ordinary Gamers channel back when he was still doing creepypastas, way early on. So I've watched them, at least off and on, for quite a while. But it was interesting to see that he just pops back up on my feed, but not on his own channel. No, rather his got a target on his back this time, and he's actually brought up on other people's channels, and they're ready to snipe him out over his big controversy, which is his lying of credentials. To give you a little more background, in case you don't know what his channel is about, it's kind of a mixed bag channel. It started off as a gaming channel, hence the name Ordinary Gamer, and he kind of pivoted into several other topics, creepypastas, other things, and eventually dumped into the drama commentary space, which was probably the black kiss of death for his channel, especially if you're ever going to stretch the truth or lie straight up on your channel to your audience. You want to stay out of the commentary drama space, because it's a whole thing of those who live by the sword will cut themselves as well, or be cut down by others. You know the actual saying, but I can't say it on YouTube. And I think that's exactly what happened to him here. So now that we have a little bit of the background done, what is this controversy? Well, several points throughout his video series, especially as he's talking about technology and commenting on other people's materials, he likes to throw around the word engineer quite a bit and give himself a credentialing, or at least a level of credentialing, to his audience in some type of engineering format. Whether he is talking about some other jobs or projects he's worked on, or that he was a former engineer or is an engineer, or builds this or that and understands tech and computers and whatever else through some kind of engineering background of some kind. After a while, he just sort of really leaned into it. He went from just saying, I have a background in engineering, I'm a former engineer, I know something about engineering, to I am an engineer, over and over and over again, and that was his main credentialing point for the content that he was presenting. Now, that's not uncommon in the YouTube space. In fact, if you listen to any of those gurus, for all my other small channel friends out there, they tell you, you got to hook your audience, and then you got to make them trust you with your credentialing. That's why I share that I have 20 plus years of experience doing etc. But I do also believe in transparency, honesty, and authenticity. That's why I also do share that I am not a professional in that field. I am not classically trained in whatever field I'm talking about, unless I actually am, which I do have a higher education degree, a doctorate degree in medicine, not engineering. So if I ever talk about topics of medicine, maybe I'll pull that card out then. But for right now, we're talking about engineering, and the channel is a DIY channel. With that, I do not have any formalized training, degree, or professional licensure. I am just a self-taught guy who has screwed up 1,000,001 times and wants to teach you guys what I've learned, so you don't have to screw up 1,000,001 times. You can get it right in the first couple of attempts. That's my overall goal with the channel and with giving you my background. So it makes it clear that yes, I may know what I'm talking about for the specific thing I am presenting because I've done it whatever X amount of times or for however long, but it may not be necessarily the right way of doing things, the true scientific way of doing things, or the true engineering way, or whatever way of doing things. And oftentimes I'll share that on the channel, and oftentimes I'll make it explicit that, hey, there may be better ways of doing this, and if there are, I will share those with you on the channel. However, what got Mutahar into trouble is he didn't do that. He says, I'm an engineer, full stop. And that could be argued that it leads the audience astray, because now it gives the audience a false sense of belief in your proficiency and prowess, which is rather sad because they would have just as equally much of a belief in your proficiency in whatever you're talking about if you say, hey, I may not know this from standardized education, but I've done it so many times, I've learned it, and I've learned the hard way, screwed up here or there, and this is what I've learned, and this is why this method that I'm showing you will work. That gives just about as much credibility to your proficiency as anything else. Now, of course, there is also something else to be said about whether or not that actually can be picked up by the audience, appreciated by the audience, understood by the audience, and it is a nuanced type of thing. So a lot of times it would be just cleaner and easier to say, I know this because I am that, and there you go, that is my credentials. And oftentimes more people will believe you then than they would be if you say, I don't have the education, but this is what I've learned doing it. That could be said as well too. And that's one thing you're going to notice in this video is I'm going to really dig apart through the nuances and actually give you both sides of the argument. I'm not going to give you necessarily my opinion or drive you into any particular direction. I will give you my opinion of certain things, but I'll make it clear that is my opinion. My main goal here is to give you the truth of the situation, which is where a lot of the commentary channels are dropping off. They want to sensationalize and sell you a story, and they do a good job of it. They're getting millions, if at least not hundreds of thousands of views for their videos. But it is sensationalized content, and it is scripted in such a way to deliver a very, very specific agenda and narrative behind it. That's not what we're going to do here. Here we're going to look at both sides of the argument, just like any true logical, enlightened, and mature individual would. Before then, they can draw an educated conclusion to the actual topic at hand. Get a little bit of coffee. I'm pretty tired today. Let's go a little bit further into what these commentary channels are actually talking about. The biggest thing that they're picking up on, and the biggest thing that they're kind of basing their arguments on, is Mutahar broke a law. What he's doing is illegal. Call the police, call the feds, call the Marines, call somebody who cares. So what these commentary channels are ultimately picking on is the Professional Engineers Act, specifically in Ontario. Now, that is a law that has been codified, of course. It is in the legal system. It is in the provincial legal code. But it's not the only code that protects professionals. There are several other professional codes and acts that protect various other people, such as medical and health practitioners, engineers, etc., etc. And all these, including the Engineers Act, are a combination of both federal and provincial territorial laws, but they're largely enforced by the territories themselves, and they're usually lobbied for and further actually enforced in terms of their fines and actions against an individual through professional organizations. And in this case, in the Professional Engineers Organization of Ontario, where Mutahar is. And that's one of the key things that they're picking on here. Now, what is this law, first of all? Well, this law essentially states that the noun itself of engineer is a protected term, along with PEng, which is a designation of a professional engineer or a doctorate level of engineering degree. Of course, I am no Canadian legal expert. I'm not even a legal expert of any kind. I'm just a snoop who likes to learn. But here's what I found out so far. Now, the PEng stands for professional engineer, but it sometimes can also denote, from what I understand from some of the things I've looked at, it could also denote a doctorate level of engineering as well too, but it really just mostly stands for a professional engineer who is a degree holder and, most importantly, a licensed individual to practice in their field of engineering. Mutahar doesn't have any of that. He neither holds a degree nor does he hold a professional license, yet he uses the term engineer. And yes, the term itself, engineer, is protected because engineer is a shorthand way for people to communicate, understand, and denote that they are a professional licensed engineer in the Canadian system, at least. Now, Mutahar doesn't say all that. He just says, I'm an engineer. And that's where they're picking up on that he's breaking the law and lying to his audience, etc., etc., etc. And of course, they pull on a lot of different other clips from the past that show that he's very clearly said that he's dropped out of school. He was originally pursuing some type of engineering, decided to drop out, switched over to videography and some other things, and went a totally different path in life, and ultimately never ended up finishing to hold a degree, let alone a license to actually practice engineering, which does require a degree first. You can't just go pass a test and get your licensure or certification. You need to have a degree first, and then you could go and get licensed as an engineer in Ontario and in many other provinces and territories in Canada. Of course, you need to go through their own provincial systems and follow the provincial territorial regulations and codes in order to do so. But again, they're picking specifically about Ontario. Here's the interesting part that they kind of leave out about that. They kind of briefly mention that other types of engineering that aren't really considered engineering in the Canadian mind, such as train engineer, but they kind of leave out why can they use it and somebody like Mutahar can't, or somebody who wants to build a bridge for you and calls themselves an engineer can't use it that way. Well, the thing that they don't quite explain is there are provisions in that act and in that law that allow certain groups to still refer to themselves as engineer, but they have to clearly denote which derivation of engineer they fall under. For example, a student who is studying engineering can call themselves a student engineer, because I'm not sure exactly how it works in Canada, but I know in the US at least, a lot of degree programs have a practical component where you are actually working under somebody else's license ultimately, but you are still doing the tasks of your profession to learn and also help the particular team that is giving you that training and that teaching at the same time. So you are working in the field and you are actually doing products or doing services for paying customers. So yes, you can refer to yourself as a student engineer. Well, that clearly denotes that you are not degree holding yet. You are in the process of actively achieving your degree and that you are working under somebody else's license. It makes it very clear, at least in the Canadian mind, that is what is being communicated and that is who you are. So they understand what services they can get from you and what you're allowed to do, what scope of practice you're allowed to work in, as well as who to ultimately blame if something goes left, entirely bad, sideways, however you want to say it. There's also the other provisions to it which allow even individuals who hold a degree but not a license yet to call themselves an engineer. They can call themselves engineer graduate or engineering graduate or graduate engineer. Now that denotes a couple different things. That denotes that they at least have finished their bachelor's degree and are either stopped at that point and do not have their professional licensure, or they are in the process of getting a graduate level of degree to further their education in that field, but they've finished at least the basic hard boot camp essentially of engineering. But yet they are still limited in the scope of practice in terms of what they can do, what kind of services they can offer, where they can work, and under what conditions that they can work and provide services under. Then of course you have completed engineering graduates, which again kind of also denotes people that have gone higher up in education, or postdoctoral graduates. They have gone above like a master's up into a PhD program, but are not holding a license yet. So that clearly denotes that they have a higher level of education, a higher knowledge, and a higher skill set, but yet they are still limited in their scope of practice of what they can do, where they can do it, and under what conditions they can do it with. So, and it clearly communicates that they're not holding their own independent license, they're not their own independent practitioner, and they are not likely to be holding any sort of bond or licensure, or bond or insurance to protect them should anything go sideways. They would have to work with a larger group or work under somebody else's license in order to be able to do products and services for people as an engineer. But they can still refer to themselves as an engineer. Now there's other things in there, which is what they picked on in a lot of these commentary channels, that there are other subsets where we would classically in Western culture think of them as an engineer, but it doesn't fall under the strict legal definitions of a protected engineer in the Canadian system, such as trained engineer or software engineer to certain scopes of software engineering. Now Mutahar kind of goes way past that by first of all calling himself a full-on engineer, a former engineer. That's the other thing too. If you're retired and no longer holding a license to actively practice, you can also call yourself a formal ex or previously licensed engineer, any of those derivations, and you are still considered legally protected and legally okay to refer to yourself as an engineer with that derivation and that explanation attached to it. So he kind of did that a little bit, but he doesn't make it clear that it's not holding a license and practicing. And that's what they're picking on, right? One, he doesn't actually have a degree. He clearly said way early on that he dropped out. Clearly there's no record of him ever finishing. He never said he actually ended up finishing ever. But then he goes on and says that he's worked on projects and worked for other people and made products for other people and wants to do other projects and products and so forth and so forth. Now, of course, they bring in a bunch of other things and kind of throw him under the bus for several other things that they think that he's lying on, or alleging that he is lying on, or trying to prove that he's lying on. That's a different story, but this is really what the main thing that they're picking on here. Now, here is why I personally don't really feel like I have much of a problem with what Mutahar did. Now, I'm going to give you the information, my opinion, and also both sides of the argument here. So again, you can arrive to your own educated decision at home. I don't want to push you and drive you into any sort of idea or rile you up in one way or another. I want to educate and hopefully allow you guys to have a better understanding of the situation and the material. That's the whole goal here. I do have somewhat of a problem, but I'll get into that a little bit. But I don't have a big problem, at least not blowing up to the scope that Mutahar's career should end and he should get away from YouTube and blah, 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 and blee, 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 and kiki, ha, 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 and all the other shit that they keep blabbling on about on the commentary channels. I really look at this as like, you didn't handle it the best, bud. You could have done better in that situation there. There's a better ethic and a better code of practice that you really could have done things by, and you would have saved yourself a lot of trouble, and also your audience probably wouldn't be leaving at this point. I don't really know if they're leaving yet or not, but that's kind of the assumption that usually when a YouTuber gets exposed, a lot of his audience kind of abandon them. Kind of a sad thing, but you know, that's what it is. And of course now everyone's demanding that he apologize, mostly other big YouTubers or other YouTube commentary channels, and I do think he should apologize for some very specific things. But I don't really feel like what he did here with the engineering thing specifically is really that big of a how do you do? And here's the reason why. So with any YouTube channel, you have an audience. A lot of our channels either already are or will soon, if you're a small creator, go to the international market eventually. Not just that, but if you are a content creator and you look at your analytics, you might actually be surprised to see that unless you're doing something very specific in the native language of another land, if you're performing in English as a spoken language in your video, the bulk of your audience is going to be an American audience. And this comes to be very important later on. And the reasons why I, as an American viewer, American content creator, and somebody who has learned this kind of engineering stuff on his own in the American system and in the American style, don't really see this as such a big howdy-do. Because here in America, we understand engineers a little bit different. Now, we also have laws that protect consumers from bad actors, especially that are claiming credentials and proficiency and prowess in certain fields from getting swindled or, most importantly, hurt by whatever that individual is providing them service-wise, by making it very, very clear and very, very legally structured of how things should be done to ensure that the practitioner themselves is educated, licensed, and bonded, and that the likelihood of what they're going to be producing is going to be safe for the consumer. And if something goes wrong, the consumers have a direct link and directly somebody to go after and blame for the situation that they're in. To call yourself a professional X, you need to have a license in order to be considered a registered and licensed, therefore bonded, and therefore also insured practitioner of whatever scope of practice and scope of field you are promoting and trying to sell to your consumers. But we also have not just provisions, but also a cultural connotation of these words differently, because we also have the structure in our society and in our culture of the amateur whatever, the amateur X. I will refer to it from here on out. Now, the X, of course, is whatever field or profession you want to put in there. For the purposes of this video, engineer, just to help kind of guide the audience and clarify what we're talking about here. So what is an amateur? Now, a lot of people, when they hear the word amateur, they think somebody who is not really good at something or in a very basic level of something, and that can be very much true. Amateur is a broad term. What amateur really actually means is somebody who is not a professional, and this is just a very simplified way of putting it, but it is one of the definitions, or at least part of its definition, that an amateur is somebody who is not considered a professional of whatever. That means that under the legal definition, professional is somebody who holds the license, as I mentioned before, has followed all the regulatory codes, and also carries a bond and insurance. That is a big part of being an active professional. But we also have the idea of the amateur who is not licensed or classically educated, that is doing or operating within that particular scope or field. Now, an amateur can actually be extremely proficient, and sometimes, actually it's not rare at all, for many amateurs to actually be more proficient in whatever scope that they're working in than the quote-unquote freshly graduated professional who is licensed. And that is for a couple reasons. Amateurs are usually not attending a degree gaining program. They're not going through a traditional structured program. They may go to classes of some type or get some sort of educational background on what they're doing, but not even that is necessarily required. An amateur is somebody who is largely self-taught or self-guided in their education, and they can either seek it out on entirely their own, attend some classes, or attend a program but just not obtain a degree, or they can attend an apprenticeship of some kind, whether formal or informal, to learn on the job. Thereafter, they learn continuously through their own experiences, actually practicing what they're learning. That's how an amateur can actually be very proficient and very capable, but because they didn't go through the accreditation process or didn't go through ultimately the licensing and certification process, they're not considered a professional, and that's where the dividing line is. Now, because of that, in many fields, amateurs can actually do the work and are many times allowed to do that actual work for pay or for some type of compensation, whether it's doing it for specific individuals, doing it as part of their own business, doing it as part of a group practice or another business, or being commissioned by a particular individual and sought out to do that job for them for that particular project. So they can work on their own projects and they can work on other people's projects, and even for pay. As a matter of fact, especially with something with software and computers and engineering, a lot of our people here who are very proficient and are doing it as a paid service don't hold any degree whatsoever, or even really a license to do it. They are just very proficient and capable and knowledgeable through their own study, their own practice, and can prove and have proved that they can do the job and perform the skills in a safe and regulated manner and follow all the regulations that are set forth for any sort of professional of that field. Now, of course, this doesn't extend to all fields. For example, my background in medicine. Nobody can practice medicine or nursing or be a doctor amateurly. That's not okay. And why is that not okay? But something like computers and other things, or even some engineering or building cars or building parts and pieces for people, how come that's all okay? Well, as long as whatever you're doing is not directly from the direct action and direct service impacting the health and safety of the public, you're usually kind of allowed and kind of okay to do it. Now, with that being said, if things go sideways and something does end up happening and everything goes totally down to the shithole, well, it's going to be a huge liability for you in court that you're not licensed, that you're not insured, and that could really land you in some hot water. But nobody's actually going to stop you from doing it in the first place. And just because you're out there actively practicing, as long as it's not one of the protected fields, nobody's going to take you away from doing it or fine you, unless, like I said, it's one of those protected ones. This is also true for Mutahar as well, too. Now, I don't get to see the analytics of other people's channels, and I'll say, show me directly. And, of course, Mutahar, I haven't seen his directly. I haven't asked him to show me. I don't know if he will show me at some point. Maybe that would be cool if he would like to partner up and show me that or whatever. But I can see mine, and I've seen the other small creators that I often partner and work with. And it's pretty clear that, for the most part, if you're doing your stuff in English as a primary spoken language in your video, you are going to have a big bulk of an American audience in your analytics. Now, that becomes very important, like I mentioned earlier. When Mutahar is speaking to his audience, he's not going to address one audience group and then the other audience group and then the other audience group individually, or make individual videos for every single one. He's going to make one video that globally suffices and satisfies everyone in one go. And because he most likely does have a very large American audience, I mean, he is very heavily viewed here in the States. One of the quickest and easiest ways to communicate that you have knowledge and have experience in whatever it is you're talking about is just to call yourself whatever it is that you're talking about. Unless it's one of those protected fields, of course. So I don't see much of an issue in that respect of him saying, I'm an engineer or former engineer or whatever engineer. He very well could be, but an amateur one, not a professional one. And of course, he doesn't disclose and distinguish. Now, that's where I do have a problem with what he did, but I don't think it's that major bump in the road and career-ending sort of thing. It's just something that could have been done better and really should have been done better. But again, that's our own code of ethics and policy as content creators. Not necessarily it's necessarily something legal that had to be done. How many YouTubers have lied to your face, or influencers have absolutely lied to your face, or those viral people have also done all kinds of stupid shit and lied all about it. Yeah, it's unfortunate that that's the case, and it kind of really does throw the onus onto the audience to be intelligent about what they're watching and try to educate themselves and then make their own educated opinion instead of just jumping into a conclusion. That's why I want to do my channel the way I'm doing it, so I can give you both sides of the fence, whatever it is what we're doing, give you as much background information as you need, so you then can make your own educated guess and arrive to your own conclusion in a much more intelligent, supported, and knowledgeable way, without being pushed or influenced, but also not being left without what you need to actually come to that conclusion. Now, he could have done much better about it, sure. That's one thing that should be picked on. But to really say that he is such a liar and lied about his careers and lied about this and lied about that and about 8 to 5 living, those are some other things. Let's get into that too, actually, now that I remember it. Hey, let's search this video out, so when we do become monetized, we got space for a lot of ads. Hey, at least I'm honest. Okay? Plus, it's actually very interesting information, so you do want to stick around for it. So I don't think this is supposed to be some big career-ending, big hoopla that he's such a liar and such a whatever and such a thief and such a con artist or whatever. No. You take it all into context. He didn't do the best job of actually representing himself correctly in a very authentic way, but he also really didn't do something egregious either. He just didn't. He did his best guess, probably, giving him a little benefit of the doubt here to make it clear to the audience in one simple, concise term, line, phrase, what his background is and why they should listen to what he's about to say about the topic. Now, he may have also even been a little more malicious and kind of manipulated it a little bit and manipulated the narrative a little bit through omissions and the way he did phrase things to make it seem like, or to at least to make you think and lead you to believe that he is something of a much higher professional grade level. Both are equally true, and I think both were actually at play here. I think honestly it started more innocent, and then when he saw the results of it, it became a little more intentional. That's really what I truly believe, just based on the logic of the situation and how I've seen it devolve through his content. So that's my opinion there. Then, of course, they pick on more than just that to make him such a liar. Like, that he works a normal job, and yeah, he's posting every single day. How many times have I posted every single day? I work an 8 to 5 job and commute every single day. Not on the weekends, but Monday through Friday. And a lot of times my videos will come up in the middle of the day. Now, granted, they're not live streams, but they are videos. Some of you may be content creators at home. It doesn't matter if you're a small channel or big channel, you'll understand this. But a lot of people at home are just posters, not posers, posters, like you're posting something. They take it more as social media, just like Facebook, and just post something up. And they don't have to worry about the rest of the whole situation, metadata and scheduling and all that sort of things. They just throw it up there and that's it. It's a story that they pop up there. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But that type of audience may not understand what we can actually do as content creators and what you can even do as a poster yourself. But as content creators, we often do something called batch filming. What does batch filming mean? Well, as you see in a lot of my short series or episodic content, I'm wearing the same clothes in almost every single one of those videos, and it's the same day. That is called batch filming. And it's not just that it's a long video cut up into pieces. A lot of those are actually totally separate filmed pieces. Basically, you're making a lot of videos at one time. And often I will make several different actual videos through and through on the same day. I'll do at least 3, 4 of them, sometimes 5 of them. I'll get hours of content filmed in one single day. And that way I can work through it, edit it, post it, change it, recompile it, however, to make new and fresher content and keep it out, rolling out onto the stage, essentially onto your screens. That's what batch filming is. We film a lot in one day, a lot of different videos. Sometimes we may change clothes, change scenery to make it seem like it's a different video. Other times we don't. But then what we do after we edit it is it takes a little bit of processing time. Not just that quick processing time that lets you post it up, get it ready for posting, right? But thereafter, once it's actually live, quote unquote, posted, it doesn't have to be live aired, but live on the channel, meaning it's up, metadata, everything is ready to rock and roll. Maybe it's just unlisted or privated. But then the algorithm has to process it over a period of several hours to a couple of days to figure out who it's going to go to, how it's going to run, etc., etc. Figure out ads if you have ad space on it, if you're monetized, so forth and so forth. So because of that, oftentimes we will batch film and then post up those videos to air on different days by scheduling them out so that we also not only get the processing done in the background, but then it also just airs automatically. And we could be off at work and doing something else. And the video can come out in the middle of the freaking day. How did that happen? Because we filmed it way in advance, cut them all up, or filmed several separate, entirely different videos all together, and set them up on the channel and let them sit there until they're ready to be aired and schedule them out and let them air. That's it. So I also don't kind of buy into the thing, well, you're posting every single day. Now, if he's doing live streams every single day, he still could do that every single evening. And most of his videos are very, very dark. And also, it's got like the best blackout curtains ever, but you can see the neighbor's light on in the background that he actually uses as a backlight. So it's pretty clearly done, mostly in the evenings. So he can do lives every single day. That's perfectly fine. It look good for him that he's not totally burned out and tired by the time he gets home. I am. I have to take a nap before I can do a video or anything, but I'm also an old guy too, so that could play into it. But that's perfectly acceptable to be able to do. All of us do that. All of us content creators do that because we don't want to be filming something fresh every single day. Not that we don't want to, but sometimes we just can't do it, or it also would lead to us to burnout if we did. So sometimes we just kind of pound it really hard when we really have the muse, get a bunch of them all ready to go, and then just sit back, relax, and let them kind of do their thing once they're ready and up on the channel. That's it. So it's perfectly acceptable that he could be working a normal job or wherever and having his content air every single day without even having to be at his computer at all. So that's perfectly acceptable. I don't see any issue with that necessarily. Now about the day trading thing. I also day trade. So usually in the morning, the stock market will open at about 6:30 a.m. I'm usually up before that. I get ready. I line up my calls. I line up my puts. I set up things to sell. I set my limits. I get everything all ready to rock and roll. As soon as 6:30 rolls around, I watch what the market's doing for a bit, maybe make some quick moves right there on the spot, see if what I have set up on my limits are anything good, if I'm going to grab what I want to grab, or should I hold off and make my limit a little higher or lower and see kind of where the things need to be for it to really be something profitable for me. Yeah, I do that. I just do that. It doesn't take long. Doesn't take long. You could do that while working an 8-to-5 job and having a YouTube channel. I don't know how many properties he has or that he's managing, but I also manage properties. Yeah, I have investments. As a matter of fact, I'm renting a place right now, a commercial spot right now, and I'm dealing with the renters not wanting to pay rent, even though they should be professional business people. But Lord knows a crook is a crook, no matter how much degrees or certifications they got on them. Even a decorated, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, a crook is a crook, no matter what. And I'm dealing with that right now, so I'm dealing with legal issues and with a lawyer and possibly eviction and all that sort of thing. But I'm doing that while working my 8-to-5 job and running a homestead and running a channel and day trading. That's perfectly fine. I still get home in enough time to eat supper, spend time with family, or relax if I want to relax, or run up to the shop, do a project and take you guys with me on it, or edit for the channel and get videos up and scheduled out. There's plenty of time. It's doable. It's very doable. So I don't buy into that whole thing that, oh, because he posts every single day, there's no way he could be working a normal job. Then he must be the hardest working person in the world. And there's no way they can have so many different jobs and so many different things. Why not? I don't see how he couldn't. If he's a driven guy, which he seems to be honest, and not to mention that culturally, that's their mindset. That's what it's ingrained in them since a very little kid. And that's what their family pushes them to do. My culture, Romanian culture, is very, very similar. And my parents specifically were very much like that, which I am extremely grateful for now as an adult. It wasn't so fun as a kid, but I'm extremely grateful for it now. That's for damn sure. They instilled in me a work ethic that is beyond comparison. And it's allowed me to be successful in a lot of different areas that I want to tackle. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for doing that. And thank you, my culture, for ingraining that in me. Now, Mutahar can be very, very similar. There's no reason why he couldn't and play video games to relax and have time to spend with his wife. Or, I think, does he have a kid yet? Or I'm not sure. But whatever, he's spending time at least with his wife and his, his actual parental family or extended family. That's perfectly fine. I do the same thing. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. You just gotta do it. If you're gonna do it, do it. That's it. So it's not at all impossible. Now, whether or not he was actually doing it for real, that's a little questionable. I don't know. There's no proof of it, but we do have to look at both sides of the coin. So he might very well just be lying and manipulating. That's very, very true. But also he could be telling the truth. And also it's very realistic and very, very possible to do. I do it every single day. It's entirely feasible. And run the homestead and do these projects and do everything. It's perfectly fine. If you want something, you're going to go out and get it. You're going to go out and do it. That's just what it is. There's no such thing as having time. You gotta make time. The time is not just going to be handed to you and plopped on your lap like a bird shit from above. No, you gotta go and make it. You gotta make that time happen and make the time work for you. That's the secret. It's not impossible. Anybody can do it. Doesn't take anybody special. You can do it. I can do it. Anybody can do it. You just got to do it. That's the only thing. So really, I don't really see Mutahar as a big liar in the controversy of the YouTube century. Whatever shit. It isn't. It is such a nothing burger of arguments that they brought up. It's such a nothing burger of an issue. And it's really just not important. I mean, it isn't. Now, could he have done things better and explain it better and provide you, the audience, more context or a validation of what he's doing? Yeah, sure. And that would have been better and more professional and more ethical, by our ethics as content creators. But it's not required. It's not necessary. Just because he didn't do it doesn't mean he is actually automatically lying. I don't see it. It's a nothing burger. Period. Well, anyway, I think we spent long enough talking about this. It's already 6:30. It's Friday. Yeah, don't give up my day job. Yeah, I'm not giving up this day job. This day job is way too good to give up. But anyway, let's go ahead and get home because the day job is in fact finished. I'm tired. It's Friday. Let's go home. Let's relax a little bit. Let's edit some good videos. Have some fun for the channel. And get ready because tomorrow we're going to go tackle Super Jank again. We have the other missing part we need, which is the coil. And that video is coming up next about how we tested it and determined that likely the coil is the next part that went bad in the whole ignition system. I'll air that soon. And then we'll go up and actually do this on camera and hopefully get Super Jank to crank. We got to crank the jank. She's running away otherwise. So let's go ahead and do that. Anyway, this was the Fuzzy Fixer. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to share. And most importantly, don't forget to always be learning. Always be questioning. Questioning is a good thing. You should be doing that. But that also means questions the ones that are questioning the questions. Because sometimes what they're asking or what they're answering isn't the whole story. You need to get both sides of the fence. So I'll see you all next time.